A 6-year-old girl dropped to her knees in the middle of a shopping mall and begged her father to stop choking her mother. 40 people stood and watched. Some filmed it. Nobody moved. Nobody called for help. One man set down his shopping bag, walked through the crowd, and took the attacker to the floor in 4 seconds. She didn't know his name. Not until the next morning, when her sister showed her a photo and said, "That's Keanu Reeves." Marlowe Jennings was 32 years old, and most days she felt closer to 50. Not because of how she looked, but because of what she carried. The kind of weight that doesn't show on a scale. The kind that settles into your bones after years of being told you are nothing. She worked the front desk at a dental office on the outskirts of Los Angeles. It wasn't glamorous, but it kept the lights on. Barely. She and her 6-year-old daughter Sable lived in a 1-bedroom apartment with thin walls and a kitchen faucet that dripped no matter how hard you turned the handle. But Sable never complained. She would sit on the floor with a box of crayons and a stack of printer paper, drawing pictures of houses with big yards and flowers in the windows. She never asked why they didn't live in a house like that. She just drew them, as if believing hard enough might make one appear. Marlowe had left Garrett Tully 11 months ago. Garrett came from money. His family owned a chain of auto dealerships across the valley, and he had grown up believing that money was the same thing as power. When they first met, Marlowe was 24 and working at a grocery store. Garrett was charming, generous with gifts she could never afford. He told her she deserved better. She believed him because no one had ever said that to her before. But charm fades the way a bruise changes color. First came the comments disguised as jokes, then the control, then the hands. It took 4 years and one terrified little girl hiding in a closet for Marlowe to finally pack 2 bags in the middle of the night, strap Sable into the car seat, and drive to her mother's house with a split lip and $63 in her checking account. The restraining order came a week later. 300 feet. The judge said it firmly, like it was a wall no one could climb. But Marlowe knew better. A piece of paper had never stopped Garrett Tully from doing anything he wanted. On this particular Friday afternoon, she was trying not to think about any of that. She had scraped together enough to buy Sable new sneakers. The old ones were falling apart, held together with a stubbornness that matched Sable herself. So here they were at Ridgewood Galleria, a sprawling mall on the edge of the valley. Sable's hand gripped hers as they walked past the food court. "Mommy, can we get a pretzel on the way out?" "Sneakers first, baby?" Sable smiled. For a moment, everything was fine. Normal, safe. She never saw him coming. Her body knew before her mind caught up. That cold feeling in her stomach, that tightening in her chest. Garrett Tully. Right there in the middle of the mall, on a Friday afternoon, in violation of every legal boundary that was supposed to keep him away. His eyes were glassy. He had been drinking. Garrett always got worse when he drank. Sable's grip tightened. "Mummy," she whispered, and there was a whole world of fear in that single word. Marlowe turned him around, walking fast, pulling Sable close. "Just get to the car. Just get to the parking lot." But Garrett was faster. He always had been. "Don't you walk away from me." His hand was on her arm. He spun her around so hard she stumbled. The smell of whiskey hit her immediately. "You think you can just take my daughter and disappear? You think that little job of yours makes you something?" His lip curled. "You came from nothing, and that's all you'll ever be." Then his hand closed around her throat. The pressure was immediate. Total. His fingers pressed into the sides of her neck hard enough to cut off the air. Her purse fell. Her hands flew up, clawing at his fingers. She tried to scream. Nothing came out. And then there was Sable, 6 years old, broken sneakers, crayon-stained fingers. She dropped to her knees on the cold tile floor, pressed her small hands together, and begged, "Daddy, please stop. Please don't hurt Mommy." Her voice echoed in the silence that had fallen around them. It should have been enough to stop any father in the world. But Garrett didn't even look at her. That was the part that would haunt Marlowe for months. Not Garrett's hand on her throat. The people. 30 or 40 of them standing within clear sight. Some pulled out phones. Not to call for help, but to record. A woman muttered, probably a family thing. That was it. Discomfort. Whispers, phone cameras, nothing else. About 20 feet away, a man stopped walking. You wouldn't notice him in a crowd. Average height, lean, black t-shirt, jeans, dark baseball cap. He was carrying a brown paper bag from one of the stores. He looked like any other guy running errands. But he was standing perfectly still, watching. His eyes moved from Garrett's hand on Marlowe's throat to Sable on her knees to the circle of bystanders, doing nothing. Something in his face shifted. Not anger. Something quieter. Something more certain. He set the bag on a bench. Then he started walking. Not running. Walking. Steady and purposeful. He reached Garrett in 4 seconds. Without a word, he gripped Garrett's wrist and twisted. Controlled. Precise. Garrett's fingers released Marlowe's throat on pure reflex. She stumbled backward, gasping, sucking in air so hard her chest burned. Garrett spun and swung. The man stepped aside, caught his arm, used the momentum to bring him face, first to the floor, and pinned him with a knee and a grip that locked both arms behind his back. Clean. No wasted movement. Get off me, Garrett snarled. You don't know who you're dealing with. The man didn't respond to him. He turned to the nearest bystander. Call 911. Restraining order violation and assault. Ridgewood Galleria, East Food Court. Then he looked at Sable. The little girl was pressed against her mother, shaking, face streaked with tears. His whole expression changed. Something almost fatherly came through. Hey, sweetheart, you're safe now. Your mom is okay. Sable stared at him, still trembling, but she nodded. Police arrived. Garrett was handcuffed, shouting about lawyers the whole time. The man gave his statement calmly, with a precision that was remarkable. He gave his name. The officer's pen paused for just a moment before continuing. After everything was finished, the man walked Marlowe and Sable to their car. He didn't crowd them. Didn't fill the silence with small talk, just walked with them. His presence alone made the long corridor feel safer than it had any right to. At the car, Marlowe turned to him. Thank you. I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't. She couldn't finish. He nodded. You don't need to thank me. But listen, men like him don't stop after one arrest. There's an organization called the Westside Women's Safety Foundation. Legal aid, counseling, everything. Free. Look them up. Please. He glanced at Sable, crouched down to her level. You were really brave in there. Then he turned and walked across the parking lot. No business card. No phone number. He just walked away. Marlowe sat in the back seat holding Sable for a long time. The parking lot sounds drifted in. Normal sounds from a normal world that had nearly taken everything from them 20 minutes ago. Mommy, Sable whispered. Is Daddy going to come back? Marlowe closed her eyes. I'm going to do everything I can to make sure he doesn't baby. Everything I can. It wasn't a guarantee, but it was the truth. The next morning, Marlowe's sister Corinne was already at the apartment. Their mother had called her. Corinne had a key, 2 cups of coffee, and a look on her face that was trying to be calm, but wasn't managing it. Marlowe pulled her collar down and showed her the bruises. 4 fingerprints on the right. Thumb on the left. After hearing the full story, Corinne picked up her phone. Describe him again. Exactly. Black t-shirt, jeans, baseball cap, beard, kind of scruffy. Brown hair, a little long. He was incredibly calm, like nothing surprised him. Corinne scrolled, stopped on a photo, and slowly turned the screen toward Marlowe. A candid shot of a man on a Los Angeles sidewalk. Black t-shirt, jeans, motorcycle helmet under one arm. That's him, Marlowe said. Who is he? That's Keanu Reeves. Marlowe stared. The actor. The actor? I didn't recognize him. He was standing right in front of me. You were being strangled, Corinne said gently. I think you get a pass. None of that was what mattered to Marlowe, though. What mattered was that, in a crowd of people who decided a woman being choked was someone else's problem, He had set down his shopping bag and done something about it. She didn't care that he was famous. She cared that he was there. Monday, Marlowe went to work in a turtleneck, too warm for the season. Her colleague, Bettina, caught a glimpse of purple during their break. Marlowe told her what happened. "Good that he's in jail," Bettina said. "But what about next time?" "There won't be a next time. For now." The words hung there. Bettina leaned forward. "Promise me you're working on something. A plan." "I am," Marlowe said, thinking about the name the stranger had given her. That evening, Garrett called from jail. 12 times in 2 hours. She blocked the number after the 12th call. Not because she was afraid of a phone call, but because she knew what each ring meant. Even behind bars, he was still trying to wrap his fingers around her life. 3 days later, someone pounded on her apartment door. Not Garrett. His mother, Lorene Tolley, wearing a designer coat and the absolute conviction that her son could do no wrong. "You were nothing before him," Lorene screamed through the door. Some grocery store girl living in her mama's spare room. Sable stood frozen in the hallway, same paralyzed terror as the mall. Marlowe carried her to the bedroom, called the police. Officers came. They warned Lorene. That was all they could do. After they left, Marlowe stood holding her trembling daughter and understood what she had been trying not to admit. The restraining order hadn't stopped Garrett. The police couldn't stop his family. The system was a net full of holes, and the Tully family had money to find every one. That night, she searched for the Westside Women's Safety Foundation. The website listed exactly what she needed: legal aid, counseling, safety planning, all free. 2 weeks later, she walked through their front door, a small building in West Los Angeles with blue paint and window boxes of flowers. It looked nothing like the grim place she had imagined. It looked like somewhere a person might actually want to go. Sable came too. While Marlowe waited, Sable found the children's corner and started drawing. Then a door opened down the hallway, and a man walked out. Dark jacket, gray t-shirt, jeans, worn boots, no entourage. He looked like a regular person finishing a regular meeting. But Marlowe recognized the way he moved. Keanu Reeves. "Here," at the foundation. "Not for cameras, just here." He saw her and stopped. Recognition crossed his face. "Hey, I'm glad you came. I almost didn't." "That's okay. You're here now." She told him everything. Garrett in jail, Lorene at the door, the police who could only warn, the money gap between his lawyers and her nothing. He listened without interrupting, without offering quick solutions. "That's exactly why this place exists," he said. "There's someone I want you to meet." He introduced her to Vivian Ashford, a tall, sharp-eyed woman in her late 40s who worked with the Foundation pro bono, one of the best family law and domestic violence attorneys in the state. Vivian shook her hand. "If you're comfortable, I'd love to talk about your options." Marlowe looked at her face and saw something she hadn't encountered in any of her dealings with the legal system. Not sympathy, not pity, competence. Before Keanu left, a small voice interrupted. "I remember you, Sable." Half hidden behind Marlowe's leg, he crouched to her level. "I remember you too. Do you like drawing?" "I used to draw a lot. Motorcycles, mostly, and dinosaurs. I draw houses and flowers." "Don't ever stop," he said. "Even when things are hard. Especially when things are hard." Sable nodded like he had told her something important. Then she went back to her crayons. He gave Marlowe a small nod and walked out through the blue front door, the same way he had left the mall. Quietly, without fanfare. Marlowe turned to Vivienne and began telling her story from the beginning. Vivienne worked fast. She filed motions, pulled records, and uncovered what Marlowe had never seen: 2 prior incidents where neighbors had called police during her marriage. Both times officers came, noted bruises, accepted Marlowe's lies about doors, and left. No follow-up, no report beyond the call log. "This is a pattern," Vivienne told her. "Years of systematic violence." The Tully family hired Bradford Hale, a defense attorney known for discrediting witnesses and using personal attacks. His fees were more than Marlowe earned in a year. His strategy became clear quickly: paint Marlowe as unstable, vindictive, a woman who had somehow orchestrated the involvement of a celebrity for public sympathy. Vivienne dismantled each argument, but the strategy served its purpose. It made Marlowe feel like she was the one on trial. Keanu agreed to testify. Immediately. No conditions. He asked for one thing: no cameras in the courtroom. He didn't want it to become about him. Garrett was offered a plea deal. 4 years, possibility of parole after 3. Bradford Hale told him they could win. Garrett rejected it. He believed, as he always had, that the rules didn't apply to him. The hearing came on a Thursday in early spring. Outside the courthouse, a small group held signs supporting Garrett. A larger group stood opposite. Women from the foundation, ordinary people who had come to show support. One sign read, "We believe you." Marlowe had to look away from it. When they brought Garrett in, he was thinner, sharper, wearing a suit his family provided. He scanned the gallery. His eyes caught something in the third row. Marlowe felt the room shift. She would learn later it was the moment he noticed Keanu. Bradford Hale opened exactly as Vivienne predicted. Devoted father. Isolated incident. Deeply remorseful. Then he turned to Marlowe's background, her education, her income, suggesting she had been eager to involve public figures in a private family matter. The prosecution played the mall security footage. Marlowe had never seen it. Watching Garrett's hand close around her throat from above, watching Sable drop to her knees. The sound of her daughter crying, captured faintly by the security microphone, filled the courtroom with a silence no lawyer could achieve. Then Keanu took the stand. Dark button-down shirt, no tie. He described what he saw with quiet precision. When he reached Sable, his voice dropped. She was 6 years old, begging for her mother's life in the middle of a shopping mall, and nobody around them moved. On cross examination, Bradford Hale tried his angle. Eyes. It possible your professional experience as an actor influenced your perception that this was really just a heated argument? Keanu looked at him with patient, absolute clarity. A man had his hand around a woman's throat. She couldn't breathe. Her lips were changing color. Her daughter was on her knees begging him to stop. There is nothing complicated about that. No further questions, Hale said, and sat down. Marlowe read her victim impact statement on shaking legs with shaking hands. She spoke about being strangled while her daughter watched, about the nightmares, about checking locks and scanning parking lots, about the voice in her mind that still sometimes whispered Garrett was right about her. Her voice broke twice. She didn't stop. The judge sentenced Garrett to 10 years, more than double the rejected plea deal. Permanent restraining order. His face went blank. Not angry, just empty. As they let him out, he turned back one last time, not toward Marlowe, toward the third row, the face of a man beginning to understand that money hadn't made him untouchable after all. Outside, a reporter caught Keanu in the parking structure. "Monsieur Reeves, why did you get involved?" He stopped. He didn't have to. "I saw a mother being attacked while her child begged for her life. I did what anyone should have done. The real question isn't why I stepped in. It's why so many others didn't." That quote was everywhere by morning, not because a famous person said it, because it asked a question nobody wanted to answer. That evening, Vivienne called. "Mr. Reeves asked me to pass along a message. He didn't want to approach you at the courthouse with all the media," he said. "You did the hard part. You stood up and spoke the truth. That took more courage than anything I've ever done." Marlowe closed her eyes, phone pressed to her ear. She thought about the podium, the shaking paper, the words she had forced out through a throat that still remembered what it felt like to be silenced. And she thought about a man who had given his testimony, then left through a side door so the story would stay where it belonged. Uncle Odell, Marlowe's uncle, who had spent 30 years as a police officer, called later that night. He'd been quiet all day. "I responded to hundreds of domestic calls," he said, "and I handled them just like those officers handled yours. Show up, note the bruises, accept whatever story she tells you, File the report, move on. I followed procedure every time, but procedure isn't the same thing as protection. His voice was rough. I should have done more. For all of them. The verdict made the national news. The Westside Foundation's donations tripled. And quietly, anonymously, someone made a donation large enough to fund 8 scholarships for survivors rebuilding their professional lives. Marlowe received one, a full ride into a dental assistant certification program. She enrolled immediately. Then came the backlash. A gossip site published an article questioning whether Marlowe was a victim or an opportunist. The comments were vicious. Strangers tore into a woman they'd never met with a casualness that was almost more disturbing than the cruelty itself. That evening, Sable was quiet at bedtime. Then she looked up and asked, "Mommy, did you lie?" A boy at school told her his dad said Marlowe was faking it. He said it in front of everyone. Marlowe pulled her close. "I didn't lie, baby. You were there? You know?" "I know. But why did he say that?" Marlowe had no answer a 6-year-old could understand. That night, sitting alone in the dark, she seriously considered disappearing, going quiet, letting the story fade. Bettina found her in the break room the next morning. If you disappear, they win. Every woman watching you and wondering if it's worth speaking up loses someone who showed them it's possible. Sable got bullied yesterday. She asked me if I lied. Then teach her how to stand. You've already taught her how to survive. Corinne wrote a social media post that evening. Not long, not crafted for virality. Just honest. She described the bruises she'd seen the morning after. The nightmares that still woke Sable screaming. The courtroom where Marlowe read the worst moments of her life off a shaking piece of paper. She ended with one line. "My sister didn't ask for any of this. She just wanted to buy her kid some sneakers." The post spread. Women who had survived similar experiences shared their own stories. The conversation shifted, not just about bystanders anymore, but about what happens to survivors after they survive. Marlowe went back to her support group at the foundation. That Wednesday evening, when the facilitator asked if anyone wanted to share, she raised her hand. "I used to think I was weak because I stayed 4 years. Because I made excuses. Because I covered the bruises and believed I deserved it." She paused. "Leaving was the bravest thing I ever did. Not because it was easy. Because it was the hardest thing I've ever done, and I did it anyway." 2 women approached her afterward. One was going to call a lawyer. The other was going to tell her family the truth. They hugged in a small room in the back of a building in West Los Angeles, and for a few seconds, 3 women who had been told they were nothing held each other up. Sable was making progress too. Her therapist reported fewer nightmares. She'd made a friend named Petra who loved drawing as much as she did. One afternoon, her teacher emailed Marlowe a photo of Sable's latest drawing, a woman and a small girl holding hands, with a man in black standing between them and a dark shape. When the teacher asked who the man was, Sable said, "He's not a superhero. He's just kind." Uncle Odell started volunteering at a domestic violence resource center. Twice a week, sharing 30 years of police experience, and learning what happened after the officers left. He gave one woman Vivienne's number. "I should have been doing this 20 years ago." He told Marlowe, "You're doing it now. That counts." 6 months after the trial, a package arrived on Marlowe's doorstep. No return address. Inside, professional, grade-colored pencils in a wooden case, a thick sketchbook, fine, tip markers, and a card in neat handwriting. "For the brave little artist. Keep drawing the world the way you want it to be." No signature. Marlowe held the card and cried. Not the sharp tears of crisis, the slow kind that come when you've been carrying something heavy for a long time and someone reminds you without any noise about it. That kindness is still real. When Sable saw the supplies, her face lit up in a way that made every hard day feel survivable. Who sent them? Marlowe thought about a man who crouched on a tile floor to tell her daughter she was brave, who testified without embellishment, who left through a side door so the story wouldn't become about him. Someone who remembers you, she said. A year passed. Not quickly. Not easily, but it passed. Marlowe finished her certification in May. Sable was in the audience, holding a crayon sign that said, "Go Mommy," with lopsided flowers. Dr. Halverson promoted her the following week. Enough salary to cover rent on a two-bedroom apartment where Sable had her own room for the first time. She drew a picture of the apartment with a cat on the doorstep. "That's for later," she said. "When we're ready." In early October, a letter arrived from a correctional facility 300 miles north. Garrett wrote that a psychologist had made him watch the security footage. That hearing Sable's voice on the recording had broken something open in him. He said he was sorry. He said he understood the pattern now. But mixed in were sentences that read like excuses wearing the clothes of insight. "I never meant for things to go that far." As if intention softened the impact of a hand around a throat. He wrote about his pressures, his drinking, his sense of losing everything, arranged so that the story of what he'd done to Marlowe was somehow a story about what had happened to him. He asked her to write back, just to know she and Sable were okay. Marlowe read it twice. She could see he was changing. Not completely, not with the honesty real change requires, but more than before. She folded the letter and put it in a drawer. She did not write back, not from cruelty, because her healing didn't depend on his. And forgiveness, if it ever came, would come on her timeline for her reasons. She told Corinne that evening, "His journey isn't mine. I don't have to connect them just because he wants me to." "When did you get so wise?" "Somewhere between the support group and the second semester of dental anatomy." They both laughed. It felt like sunlight in a room that had been closed too long. Late October. Sable dragged Marlowe to a children's art event at a community gallery. The Westside Foundation was listed as a co-sponsor on the banner. In the far corner, a man sat cross-legged on the floor painting a mural with a group of kids. A small boy was giving him very specific instructions about dinosaur placement. The man listened with complete seriousness. Faded gray t-shirt, jeans, hair pulled back loosely. Comfortable on the floor the way someone is when painting with kids on a Saturday isn't unusual for them. Sable tugged Marlowe's sleeve. "Mummy, isn't that the man from the mall?" She gave him a small, shy wave. He looked up, found Sable, then Marlowe. Warmth crossed his face. He set down his brush, walked over, crouched in front of Sable, still drawing. She pulled out her best piece from a plastic folder and held it out with both hands. He studied it. "You've gotten even better. I use the colored pencils every day. The ones someone sent me." Something flickered in his eyes. He didn't acknowledge it. Good. The world needs more people who draw it the way they want it to be. Sable announced she was going to paint a horse and took off. He straightened up. "I never properly thanked you," Marlowe said, "for that day and everything after. You did the hard work. All of it? You keep saying that. But being in the right place doesn't matter if you don't do anything. Everyone else was in the right place that day, too." He let that sit between them. "You changed our lives," she said. "No. You changed your own life. You stood up in that courtroom. You went back to school. You showed your daughter what strength looks like. I just reminded you that someone cared enough to stop. Why do you do this? The foundation, showing up here on a Saturday. You could be anywhere." He was quiet a moment. "I've lost people I loved. Life taught me that none of this, the career, the recognition, means anything if you're not using it to help someone. Showing up is the least I can do." He didn't elaborate. He didn't need to. They talked a few more minutes. Then he placed his hand briefly on her shoulder. "Take care of yourselves." He walked back to the mural, back to the kids arguing about whether the dinosaur needed wings. Sat down, picked up his brush, and listened to the small boy with strong opinions about pterodactyl anatomy. No one rushed him. No one pulled out a phone. Just another guy painting with kids on a Saturday. Then Sable came running with a painting. More paint than paper. "Mummy, look, I drew us. 2 figures holding hands. A sun so big it took up a quarter of the page. Flowers and grass in a house with a red door. No dark shape, no looming shadow. No figure in black standing between them and something terrible. Just a mother and a daughter under a wide, bright sky. Can we hang it on the fridge? Absolutely. They walked out into the October afternoon. Golden light through the windows. Children laughing behind them. Mommy? Yeah, baby. I like that we're okay. We're okay. We really are. Marlowe walked to her car with her daughter's hand in one of hers and a wet painting in the other. The life she was living was one she had built, not been given, not rescued into. Built. I've told a lot of stories. This one stays with me, not because of the moment at the mall, not even because of who stepped in. What stays with me is everything after. The woman who showed up at an office and asked for help, who stood at a podium and read the worst of her life out loud, who went to class when the internet called her a liar, who read a letter from the man who hurt her and decided she didn't owe him an answer. In that mall, dozens of people stood within arm's reach of a woman being choked in front of her child. One person moved. The question isn't why he stepped in. The question is why so many others didn't. Next time it's in front of you, what will you do?